The story of Sodom and Gomorrah is familiar even to those who have never read the Bible. It tells of two cities so steeped in sin that God decided to wipe them off the face of the earth. Sodom and Gomorrah have become symbols of vice, corruption, and the moral decline of society. Most people view this story as a cautionary tale about the punishment for sin and immorality. However, what if I told you that the story of Sodom and Gomorrah holds much deeper meanings, and its most important message is not about the punishment of sinners or the necessity to live a righteous life? What if this story is about good people who are unable to make the right decisions in difficult situations and the destructive consequences this brings upon them? Today, I invite you to look at this well-known story from a different perspective and see meanings that relate not only to sinners, but to each of us. Let's briefly recall the story. Sodom and Gomorrah were ancient cities infamously known for their sinfulness and immorality. The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah was so great and their sin so grievous that God decided to go down and see if what they had done was as bad as the outcry that had reached him. Realizing the severity of their sins, God decided to wipe them off the face of the earth. However, before executing his plan, God informed Abraham of his intentions. Abraham, aware of the city's extreme sinfulness, nevertheless entered into negotiations with God, striving to save the cities for the sake of any righteous people who might live there. He successively asked God to spare the cities, starting with 50 righteous people and gradually lowering the number, pleading for their survival, even if only 10 righteous individuals could be found. Each time God agreed, but unfortunately, not even 10 righteous people were found in Sodom and Gomorrah, making the destruction of the cities inevitable. In the end, God sent 2 angels to Sodom. Their task was to warn Lot, Abraham's nephew, and his family, as Lot was the only righteous person in the city. Lot warmly welcomed the angels, inviting them into his home, feeding them, and offering them a place to stay. However, the house was soon surrounded by the city's inhabitants, demanding that Lot hand over his guests, the angels, for their own pleasures. Lot pleaded with the townspeople not to harm the angels and even offered his 2 daughters instead, but the crowd insisted on their demands. At that moment, the angels intervened, striking the townspeople with blindness so they could not find the door to Lot's house. The angels then hurried Lot to leave the city, as the cities were going to be destroyed at dawn. Lot tried to take all his relatives with him, but no one believed him, and he left the city only with his wife and daughters. As they were leaving, the angels strictly warned Lot and his family not to look back, but Lot's wife could not resist and turned around, immediately turning into a pillar of salt. A rain of sulfur then fell upon the cities, destroying all living things, buildings, and everything on the ground. Lot and his daughters settled in a small town and later went to live in the mountains. There, the daughters realized they were alone and there were no men around to become their husbands, so they got their father drunk with wine to lie with him and continue their lineage. When discussing this story, many start to argue about what exactly was the greatest sin of Sodom and Gomorrah, which led God to destroy these cities. Some claim that the reason lies in the inhabitants' indulgence in lust, corruption, and debauchery. Others believe that the main sin was inhospitality. In my opinion, this is not the most important aspect of the story. All these awful sins in which the inhabitants of these cities were immersed are necessary only to create an image of a place where there can be nothing good, an absolutely bad place with absolutely bad people. The sins in this story serve more as a tool to create the environment into which the main character of this story, Lot, is placed, a man who is the complete opposite of his surroundings. And here we approach the truly important question that needs to be asked. Why does a good person live in a bad place? So why do Lot and his family, being the only righteous people in the city of sin, continue to live there? Indeed, Lot suffered from what he saw in the city and did not become like its inhabitants. But at the same time, the Bible does not mention that Lot tried to save the people of Sodom from their moral decay. Lot accepted life in Sodom as it was, yet he did not leave the city, even though he did not belong there. I think that one of the key messages in this story is to address the crucial question to ourselves. Am I in the right place right now? Just like Lot, many of us continue to live in unfavorable conditions, fully aware of their harm, but with no intention of changing anything. This desire for comfort and fear of change keeps us in a place that can be detrimental to us or prevent us from having a better life. The story of Lot and Sodom urges us to critically evaluate our lives and ask ourselves an important question. Why do I continue to endure discomfort instead of changing my life for the better? It reminds us of the importance of making decisions and taking action, even when it seems difficult or frightening. The story of Lot and Sodom teaches us that procrastination and indecision can lead to tragic consequences. Lot had the chance to avoid many tragedies if he had made the decision to leave Sodom earlier. He wouldn't have had to flee in a hurry, abandoning everything in the city and saving only his life. He would have had the opportunity to persuade his relatives to leave the city as well, setting an example for them. And most importantly, his wife would still be alive. This story tells us that while changes can be difficult and frightening, they are necessary for our well-being. If we don't decide to make a decisive change to improve our lives, sooner or later, life will force us to do it. However, in such a case, we will have to pay the price, and sometimes the price can be very high. When Lot and his family leave Sodom, the angels warn them not to look back, but his wife disobeys and turns into a pillar of salt. The obvious interpretation is that she disobeyed God's will and was punished for it. However, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah is not only about sin and its punishment. Remember, the Lord was willing to spare this terribly wicked city for the sake of even 10 righteous people. Therefore, the scene with Lot's wife carries beyond the obvious punishment for disobedience another meaning. This illustrates that any change requires a complete break with the past. Lot's wife, frozen in place, symbolizes those who cannot let go of the past and thus become unable to move forward, ultimately remaining forever consumed by their past. Starting a new life requires not only physical changes, but also a mental release from what binds us to the old ways. Only by doing this can we become free from the shackles of the past and build a new future. Otherwise, like Lot's wife, we will be doomed to remain with our past forever. After leaving Sodom, Lot and his daughters settled in the mountains. The daughters, realizing they were alone and that no other people were nearby, decided that the only way to continue their lineage was to lie with their father. To do this, they got him drunk with wine. The fact that the daughters had to give wine to their father indicates that Lot would not have approved of such a decision. Such behavior was more characteristic of the citizens of Sodom than of the righteous Lot. Here we can draw an important conclusion. Despite the fact that Lot and his daughters left Sodom and the city itself was destroyed, part of Sodom left its mark on them. Even though Lot was righteous, he could not fully protect his daughters from the negative influence of Sodom. This corrupted city managed to take root in them. This episode reminds us that our surroundings have a significant impact on us, and even strong-willed people may not be able to shield themselves or their loved ones from the negative influences of the place where they live. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah is a powerful reminder of the consequences of living in a morally corrupt environment. While often seen as a tale of divine punishment for sin, the deeper message lies in personal responsibility and the impact our surroundings have on our lives. Lot's story urges us to evaluate whether we are in the right place and take action to change our circumstances if they are harmful. It also highlights the necessity of making difficult decisions before it's too late, as procrastination can lead to irreversible consequences. I hope this video was interesting to you and made you look at a well-known story from an entirely different angle. And maybe it will prompt you to address some questions to yourself. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe. New stories are coming soon.